Hey everybody, welcome to the Tortured Man Mancast, episode 27. We are going to be talking about the NFL and AFC prognostications in particular. Man, I love that word, prognostications. Makes me sound smart when I say it. So we're going to be talking about the AFC. We've already done the NFC, and we're going to see where this goes. It should be a very interesting conversation because the AFC is absolutely loaded with talent, so much so that the NFC literally has no chance. There are, if I was going to name the top 10 teams in football, one, possibly two would be in the NFC, and the rest are all in the AFC. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to start this off with the AFC North. Chad, starts with you, bro.
Well, it seems like the the favorite for everyone in the North is the Bengals, for good reason.
Sure.
Joe Burrow is what he is. He's the real deal. Although that, as far as I know, that this is Labor Day, Monday, September the 4th, and that deal has not been inked. However, I don't expect that to interrupt their season whatsoever. Though, isn't Burrow injured right now? Is he going to miss? Is he going to miss the first game?
No. Burrow's going to be playing. That's not going to be an issue.
Okay, regardless, even if he did miss a game.
Joe Mixon is healthy. Chase is healthy. That offense is healthy.
Yeah, I would not expect them to do less than, 11 wins. I expect them to likely be the leader of the pack in the North. Likely take that championship. The Ravens are, to me, the wild card. And that's because if they're healthy, look the hell out, man. They have.
It's so funny.
It's
so funny you said this.
Go ahead.
I want to read something here. Here's my. So I have my stuff written down. I have little notes that quick little one-liners. And for the Ravens, my line is very dangerous if Lamar stays healthy all year, and that's a fact.
That's a big problem. Also,
he's never finished a season in his career.
Right.
So he has lost. The worst was last year. We only played in 12 games, but he's never played more than 15.
True. If he can pull it together this year, look out.
Then
you've also
got Odell Beckham Jr. and Zay Flowers, bro.
And Zay is, I think he's going to be the number one.
Well, I have something to say about him when we get to the end. But Zay Flowers, everybody better watch this kid because he is going to be a bona fide top 10 wide receiver within his first couple of years.
Yeah, so for me, the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Browns are all neck and neck right there. So, but I have to pull the trigger. I have to call for one. And I'm going to say the Ravens somehow managed to stay healthy enough to beat out the Browns. I think the Browns are right behind them. And honestly, it's hard for me to say this, but I think they barely beat the Steelers as well. Steelers number 4 in the AFC.
I think the North is absolutely loaded. I have the Steelers 4th myself. And this is why my little note beside them is next year. Kenny Pickett needs a full season as a starter. I think he's legit.
Oh, yes.
And small hands or not, I don't care. Can throw the football. So it's always funny. We discussed this before. In the NFL, they're always talking about their hands, right? So it's from here to here and how long your hands are. So anything under 10 inches, they start getting sketchy about. Mine is actually 9. Here's the deal, though. And his are around 9. So he's got about the same size hands from tip to tip that I do, right? This is what I find interesting. The college football is more condensed this way. It's fatter, and your hand would need to be bigger. This never bothered Kenny Pickett as an All-American throwing for 3,000 yards a year and 30-some touchdowns. It was never a problem. But in the NFL, where the ball elongates a little bit more and you need a smaller hand can handle it better, all of a sudden it's a problem? That's just stupid talk. It makes no sense.
Totally agree. Yeah, totally agree. I just saw an interview with Chris Sims with live face-to-face with Pat Mahomes, and they were on the practice field. And Mahomes is talking about how he has an odd hand, apparently, like really long palm, but like kind of shorter fingers. Apparently, it's a little unorthodox, whatever. Biggest thing for Mahomes, though, he said, was he holds the ball awkwardly, really up on the tip and like not really quite on the laces, but he spins the shit out of it, and it's more of a baseball style, and those guys that it doesn't matter. I'm with you. It doesn't really matter how you hold it as long as you can spin it. You know what I mean?
Right. Look, if you're a 12-year-old holding on to a pro football, it's probably a little big for your hand. You're a full grown ass man, and your hands are 9.25 inches instead of 10. But in college football, you threw for almost 10. You threw for 10,000 yards and 100 touchdowns. Go fuck yourself. That's just dumb shit. And this is my problem overall. They're putting now at this point, they're putting way, way, way too much on the combine and all these metrics that don't fucking mean a thing about how good a football player you are.
Does it pass the eye test? The eye test is the best test. So every time.
Who was the kid? Henry. God damn it, his name. Henry. God damn, he was drafted by the Raiders a few years ago. And Ruggs. And he ran like a fucking 4.15 or some ridiculous shit. And all his metrics were great. And is he even playing in the NFL? This is 3 years later, and he's already done.
He's there.
But he's done nothing. It's because metrics don't mean shit. Now, if you have the football IQ and you have the game film to prove it, and you can bench, just say you're a lineman, you can bench press 225, 45 times, fucking awesome, right? But I don't care about your cone drill. If you never gave up a sack in college football, who cares?
About it.
Makes no sense to me. You can have some metrics that matter, but what has happened? The NFL has now commercialized the combine into making hundreds of millions of more dollars on top of the tens of billions that they make, and that's what's really going on.
So he went so fast that he killed someone, and now he's serving 3 to 10 years in prison.
Who is?
That's Henry Ruggs.
He's in prison?
That's the guy that crashed his car and killed the lady.
Oh, that's who it was. That's right. I do remember that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm getting older, so sometimes my memory needs a little, like a jump start for a truck.
I was just making sure. I'm like, is this the right? I'm pretty sure.
So there you go. That's how his metrics helped him out. So give me your North. Give me your North, top to bottom.
It's so hard because I honestly think it could be any of the four. Even the Steelers, really. It really could be any of the four, but I have to do it. So the Bengals, number one. I think the Ravens are number two. They're the wild card. The Browns are right up against them. They lose, by a tiebreaker. And the Steelers are like one game behind. I think this is a big pack. Really close, really tight. From
I agree.
11 wins for the Bengals and 9 wins for the Steelers.
All right, so we're a little bit different. I have them in the exact same order. So I got Cincinnati first. Just Joe Burrows and that offense are just ridiculous. And they proved it time in and time out. They've been to a Super Bowl. They didn't win it, but they were there. They beat Kansas City and over the last 3 years have a winning record against them. So they're totally legit. So are the Ravens. For me, I think Lamar is a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. He just can't stay healthy for a full season. If they can somehow get him to dial back some of the stuff that he does, or convince him that maybe stepping out of bounds instead of taking the hits is probably a better thing to do, or slide a little more, anything to take. Just take 30, 40 hits a year out of it, and you probably make the season, right? He's got to learn how to do that, or he's going to never reach his potential, because he could be one of the great quarterbacks in NFL history. But he's got to play for the team and learn how to step outside of himself. And I think that's hard for a lot of players. Like Pat Mahomes has figured out how to do that. Some do, some don't. I hope Lamar can because he won the MVP just a couple of years ago. This guy's no joke. Mm-hmm. The Browns, my problem with the Browns is, hey, wait for it, they're the fucking Browns. So if any team with all that talent can figure, they got Myles Garrett, who literally should be like the best DN in all of football. And they somehow managed to run a defensive program that doesn't allow him to do what he does best. I don't know how this happens. They have a great running back in Nick Chubb. They got a great receiving team. They got a great tight end. They have a top 10 offensive line, and they need Deshaun Watson to be who he was before all his trouble started. And I've said it, and I'll say it again. Deshaun Watson did not forget how to play football, no matter what anybody on ESPN says. He just didn't. So if they can figure it all out, they could come in last and have a losing record or win the division. That's the Browns, right? Pittsburgh, yeah. I got them coming last, and the only reason is Kenny Pickett didn't play that many games, but he was good when he did. He needs a year. He's not ready to turn that corner. But if he can dial it up this year and that team really gets behind him and the veterans really put their trust in him, the Steelers are going to be dangerous. And next year, they're going to get even better.
What do you think is their record this year?
I got them at 8-9.
First time ever. First time ever.
The reason is
Coach Tomlin losing season for the first time ever.
First time ever. And this is why. Because their schedule is brutal.
Pew, 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 pew.
And so when you're taking basically a rookie quarterback, and look, just in their own division, between Cincy, the Ravens, and the Browns, that's 6 games out of their schedule right there.
True story.
I don't see them going 3-3 or even 2-4. They could lose all of those games. So they're in a really tough position. I just don't think they're quite there yet. If they go 9-8, I wouldn't be surprised. We're talking about a 1-game flip. It could happen. And if anybody could will it to happen, I mean, like Mike Tomlin might even put on a helmet and go and play in the last game of the year to make sure that they don't have a losing record. What would be great is if the last game of the year they're 8-8 and they tie and they go 8-1 because that would be pretty crazy. So
it would still not be a losing record.
No, and I can see it. Look, I love Pittsburgh. I love that organization. To me, they're one of the 3 great organizations in football with Kansas City and the New England Patriots. And the irony there is everybody is in the AFC again. But they're still a family-run organization that never really loses decade after decade after decade. It's not like the Steelers put something together and they've become good because Mike Tomlin's there. This team has been good since 1971. It's ridiculous what they've put together there.
And a lot of times dominant,
And dominant. In the late 70s, from 75 to 80, they were the best team, maybe the most dominant team in football history. Yeah. And they've been in Super Bowls in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. They just keep going.
6 rings, right?
Yeah, they're ridiculous. And they've lost some Super Bowls. They've been to a lot, right? So
yes.
So I think that the North is very interesting because they're just so loaded with talent. But at the end of the day, Cincinnati's the better team. Any team that can play with the Kansas City Chiefs and come out on top more times than not over the last 3 seasons, don't tell me anybody in that division is going to take them until they do it.
Fair enough.
Because Kansas City is the bar. They're the bar. Not for the AFC, but for the NFL.
Yeah, no arguments. And that's not even being a homer. It's just there's nobody you can take seriously who doesn't agree with that.
Look, if it was 2010, 2015 and you said that the New England Patriots weren't the bar, then you obviously didn't watch professional football.
Yeah. The writing's on the wall.
Right now, Kansas City is that team. They've been to 3 of the 4 last Super Bowls. They've won 2 of them, and they are still the best team in the NFL.
Yeah, that's how good they blood's on the wall. You might as well just.
And that's what happens when you have the best quarterback. So now we're going to go to the South.
Let's do it.
And I'll start with the South because.
Look at the hat, and that's who we both are planning on.
Yeah, the Jags are definitely another class of this. The Titans, the Colts, and the Texans, they're not even getting within sniffing distance of the playoffs. I got the Jags winning probably 11 games, even though they got a brutal schedule. If their offense clicks, especially with Calvin Ridley, and I got NTN, they got a good tight end, they got a great receiving core, they have an awesome offensive line. I wish they would have. They did okay, and they picked up the guys that they needed via free agency as opposed to the draft. I like it out of the draft because it doesn't hit your cap so hard. But their offense, their defense is going to be fine. They're not a top 5 or 7 or 8 defense, but they're going to be in that 10 to 15 category. But offensively, they're going to put up points, man. And Trevor Lawrence is no joke. When people bring up his first year, that was Urban Meyer. That doesn't count. That's a blip on the screen. What we saw with him under a real NFL head coach, Doug Peterson, last year is what you can expect every friggin' year from this kid. What we saw in college was real. What he did last year was real. And what they did to San Diego in the playoffs, down 27 points and won that friggin' game to go to Kansas City, was extra fucking real. How about that? So Don't tell me that this kid under pressure, after throwing 4 interceptions and a half, can't come back, make up 4 fucking touchdowns and win the damn game. Yeah, they're legit. So the Jags are going to win their division by 4 games. They're walking away with it. The Titans, I got them at 7-10, and that's coming in second place. All they have is Derrick Henry, and they've been trying to unload him all off season. It looked like Philadelphia was going to get him, which would have been scary as hell. But that didn't happen. As a matter of fact, Rosenblum, his agent, said that it was the fucking talking heads on ESPN and the NFL show, NFL Network, that blew that whole thing up because he had it in the bag and they leaked it all out and screwed it all up. Derrick Henry in Philadelphia, because they ended up with DeAndre Swift. Could you imagine Derrick Henry in Philadelphia, bro? Oh my God. So thank God for everybody else that didn't happen.
Woo!
Then I got the Colts and the Texans. I got them. You can flip them one way or the other. I got them at 5-ish wins. I think Richardson is not ready for NFL, but I think they can develop him. I hope they don't throw him to the wolves too early so that it screws up any progress that he may be able to make. And obviously, I think C.J. Stroud is legit. I think he's going to do fine there. They also, because a lot of people may forget, they also have Will Andrews that they picked up on defense as their second pick, and they traded up. Will Andrews is – I got him probably being defensive rookie of the year for the AFC. This kid is going to wreak havoc, and it's going to be amazing. But sadly for that team, they are just short on weapons at so many places. They were the worst team in the NFL last year. They're going to improve, but it's not going to be like miles of improvement. It'll be baby steps. They'll be competitive. They'll win maybe 5-6 games. So that's where I got them. Jags, they'll win it going away. The rest of them, they're not really worth mentioning in terms of playoffs or anything outside of that.
So how many games for the Jags do they win?
I got them 11-6.
Right where I got them. Nice. I also have them winning the South. Trevor Lawrence is a dog. This guy is really smart, and I don't think he can even spell stressed. Like he doesn't even look like, he's just like, what is that word? I don't even know what that means. Yeah. Dude is cool as a cucumber. That's legit. He's got all the moxie, all the deal. He's only going to come into his own the longer he does this. Now he's going to have another full season. Just him and Doug Peterson going to town. And Peterson, man, that's an Andy Reid protege. I fucking absolutely love that guy.
Calvin Ridley, you can also make the argument, is probably the best route runner of all the top 5-10 wide receivers in the NFL before he had his problems. This guy is a legit all-pro, perennial all-pro every year. This is an offense last year that broke almost every friggin' record in scoring and yards in the history of that franchise, and they just got a whole lot better. Yeah.
Yep.
They're legit. They're legit. They're gonna go to the playoffs. They're not ready for the Super Bowl yet. I can see them in the AFC Championship game against. Well, we'll get to that, but I can see them getting there.
You think they're coming to Burrowhead?
What a mistake that was! Holy shit! There was something you could want to. If you were in Cincinnati, there was something you could take back last year. It would probably be that one statement.
Whoopsie!
See,
Eat shit with your crappy chili.
but I will. Yeah, Cincinnati. They don't even know what state they want to be in. What are you, in Ohio or Kentucky? Make up your mind.
I would just like to say for the record that myself and my brother-in-law, we went to see a Chiefs game in Paul Brown Stadium in Cincinnati, and the people there were shitty.
Yeah,
man,
shithole.
They were fucking mean, and I was honestly happy the Chiefs lost because it was just two of us against a lot of other people, and I thought we might get our ass beat. It was not a pleasant crowd.
Do you remember in the 80s? Remember in the 80s when Cincinnati was good, went to a couple Super Bowls, San Francisco made them eat shit. Sam Weiss was their coach. It's a great head coach. And it was a game, it was in the snow. And their fans were throwing snowballs at the opposing players. And Sam Weiss gets to a microphone and goes, "Where do you think you are? Cleveland?" The only place he could think of that would act worse than his team was another team from Ohio. Oh, you can't make that shit up.
It's amazing.
So, at least in the North, the North is the only division in football that makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
It just does. Oh, and the NFC North too. They're the only two. Everybody else was like they get like the NFC East. Dallas, they're at Texas. How the hell are they in the East? It's so dumb. Yeah, can't make this shit up. And I don't know how Kansas City ends up with San Diego, Denver, and Oakland.
Well, hold on a minute. Let's go back to the South. So obviously the Jags are going to win that division.
Yeah.
You've discussed the Titans extensively. And I agree with
Tannehill's good.
Virtually everything you've said. I think that Vrabel's an amazing coach.
I agree.
When we talk about the Texans, and I think that the Colts, they're just trash, man. Next year, maybe we'll get Richardson to shine, but it's not going to be this year. So yeah, definitely the Jags are far and away, and I don't think any of those other teams actually make it to the playoffs.
No,
I think.
I don't think. As a matter of fact, I don't have any of those other teams even having a winning record.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they make up for the fact that the entire North has winning records. So,
the Jags are legit, and that, to be fair to the Jags, they should win 6 games out of their own division. And if you're expecting them to win 11, they only need 5 more.
Right.
And but they do play a first place schedule based on last year. And so their schedule for them is far harder than it was last year. But I think they're ready to step up and take that next step anyway. And they proved it in the playoffs because it says more about Jacksonville that Trevor Lawrence threw 4 interceptions in the first half. Mm-hmm. It says more about that team that they can go to the locker room and he can look his players in the eye and he can tell them, believe in me and I will still win this game. And then he went out and did it. Then it says anything about San Diego.
Pull it all together.
It's not San Diego anymore. The LA, whatever.
Well, and they did what they typically do, which is fall apart.
Right. They're the Dallas of the AFC.
Amen.
Well, I can get you to the playoffs, but I can't do anything after that. Well, how do you know that for sure? Because we gave up 4 touchdowns in the second half of a game that we had easily. Who do you think we are? The Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl against the Patriots? Ooh. Well, exactly. Yeah, we did.
Shots fired. Speaking of the Patriots, how do you think the AFC East shakes out, Edward?
So, and I got the Bills winning it, and this is why. I was on the fence about a couple of things. But when I really did a deep dive into them, Naheem, went down on his jet ski accident, which is ridiculous. But everybody's making it seem like this was a big deal. He played for Indianapolis because he couldn't beat out Jonathan Taylor and got traded before the deadline last year and barely did shit with the Bills. And James Cook, who was going to be starting this year out of Georgia, is a much better running back anyway, who averaged, when he played last year, 5.7 yards a carry and 12 yards per catch and scored a handful of touchdowns. So this kid is the guy who's going to be the starter. And I think they're going to be better off for it, addition by subtraction, right? Also, they got the best tight end in the draft in Dalton Kincaid. They moved up for him. It was a smart move. He is a Travis Kelce type. And they also have Dawson Knox on the team, who is a George Kittle type. So they got 1-on-1. I wouldn't be surprised if Dalton Kincaid came away with 75 catches, 12 touchdowns, and over 1,000 yards. That's how good this kid actually is. And I still can't figure out, we talked about this before, how Osiris Torrance ended up dropping to number 59 in the draft when he was far and away the best guard the draft had to offer. And it's the one piece on the offensive line the Bills needed, and they got him. So now that offensive line is being shored up. So now it comes down to, can Stephon Diggs get the tampon out of his pussy and act like a man? And can Josh Allen stay healthy for the whole year without all the nicks? If that happens, they're, along with Kansas City, the most dangerous team in the NFL. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. I got the Jets because all I got to say there is Aaron Rodgers. They had everything already. Hell, they had the defensive rookie of the year and the offensive rookie of the year. Both on their team last year. They're loaded for bear.
7 wins last year. Who was the quarterback?
Right. My point. Zach, who? I think his last name was Who. Maybe Whom. Maybe it was Whom. Either way, that team, if you can't improve 4 wins from last year with Aaron Rodgers, come on. I got Miami coming in next. This is my problem with Miami. I know all about their offensive firepower, and I sure know about Tyreek Hill. I love that motherfucker. Their O-line ranked 24th in the NFL last year. They did nothing to address it, and this is the reason that Tagliavoa has had more concussions in 3 years in the NFL than Joe Namath in 13. And he's probably going to die this year on the field because they can't protect him. And that's why Miami, who should easily be a playoff contender, won't be, is because they can't protect the guy who is already fragile. And he's going to get blown up at some point, and that'll be the end of them. And it's a shame because Tyreek Hill put up like 1,700 yards receiving last year with shit quarterbacking. Imagine what he could do if they could keep their quarterback healthy. So they should have done everything they could to make sure they could fix that offensive line. They didn't. They were ranked 24th last year out of 32. Nope. There's just no help there. And the Patriots, they were a dynasty for a very long time. They haven't fallen far, but just enough to keep them out of the playoffs. If you're expecting me in a division with Rodgers and Tagliavoa and Josh Allen, that somehow Mac Jones is going to be competitive there, I'm sorry. No, not happening. So not this year for them, probably not next year. They need a lot more help. So I got it. Bills, Jets, Miami, Pats, and I got the Bills and the Jets both making the playoffs.
Nice. So normally I would definitely be on board with exactly what you've said. The Bills especially. As you said, the Bills are kind of on a level with the Chiefs, with the Bengals, with the best. However, one must also compare the Bills to the Chargers because even though they've made it a little further than the Chargers, it hasn't been that much farther. At least the Bengals have made it to the Super Bowl, and the Chiefs have won 2 of the last 3. So,
but remember,
are they in the same air? No.
If the Bills would have got if the Chiefs wouldn't have won the coin toss,
I should say 2 of the last 4,
and the Chiefs wouldn't have scored a touchdown on their first possession. Like Josh Allen in overtime never even touched a goddamn ball in that AFC Championship game a couple years ago. So they're that good, right? They've always
No. They were really good. They gave us
San
13
Diego
seconds.
gave up fucking 4 touchdowns in the second half.
They gave Kansas City 13 seconds, and it's all it took. And that was all it took.
That happens to teams all around the NFL because of goddamn Pat Mahomes, man. Hey,
he's a fucking murderer.
You know what, Pat Mahomes? I can't confirm this, but I heard from some of my sources during that game that he said 13 seconds. I'm going to throw a couple passes away. I only need 6.
The audacity. Why so much?
You give me 13 seconds. All I need is a field goal. Fuck you, pussies. I'm just going to throw the ball into the ground or something. I'm going to, just going to waste some time on the clock because I want to do this in 6 or 7 seconds. And he did. So
yeah,
you can't play, but that's not Josh Allen's fault. So for me,
no bullshit. It is his fault.
So you're right. Isn't it a shame for like Buffalo that every time they get a really good team, the AFC is so ridiculously loaded that they can't seem to push through? It's like, what? Because if you take Cincinnati and you take Buffalo, between those two franchises, they are 0-7 in the Super Bowl combined.
And and they've been there a lot. Yeah, so that's the funny part. So anyways.
7, bro. What the fuck?
Sorry for shitting on your teams, folks, but
because second place is first place loser.
But I actually have the Bills going. I think that there's going to be some injury issues, and I think that the Bills
that always worries me. I think that they'll stay fairly healthy, but Josh Allen down the road, like Ben Roethlisberger, towards the end of the year, all those nicks start to add up. He's a big motherfucker, 6'5", 250 pounds, right? So he thinks that he's a tight end. He takes – and look, you and I both know this is how the NFL works. Anybody can get a cheap, chicky shot on him when he wants to run downfield. They're taking it. They just are.
The difference, the biggest difference I've seen – when they tuck and they try to go upfield between Mahomes and Josh Allen is Mahomes is still looking, is there somebody I can throw to at the very last? Can I just get my toe on the line and throw at the last second? And Allen will just lower his shoulder and fucking plow you or try to jump over you or do something crazy athletic. And Mahomes is still looking to just get rid of the ball, man. Different fucking mindset, dude.
It is. And the biggest thing for Mahomes and this is Andy Reid. It's not Patrick, much as I love the kid. Andy Reid, because he was a professional offensive lineman, the discipline that he instills in that line. Is there any other quarterback in NFL history that could literally take 12 seconds to throw a goddamn ball and none of his linemen are downfield? I don't know how that happens, but they're the most disciplined offensive line in pass protection I've ever seen in all the years I've been watching and studying football. And that's what separates Kansas City from every other team.
Travis Kelce's brother, Jason, who used to play for Andy in Philly, has said the most difficult training camp I've ever had was with Andy Reid. And the most difficult drill I can name was the long drive drill with Andy Reid. And he's like, this guy is a psycho, man. He will beat you down. Like, there are no days off. Like, it's hard. And, he asked the most of them, and they respect him more than anybody else. Like, it's wild. And like, they almost deify the man. You know what I mean? And I think that's because he does hold them to such a high standard. And I think it's really important. Like, he's a loving kind of fatherly figure, but at the same time, it's like that standard is there. And if you ain't meeting it, you're going to know.
That's right. The discipline in that offensive line can never be overstated. I've never seen anything like it. And that helps him become Pat Mahomes, the world-class quarterback that he is. Because Pat runs probably more than any other quarterback in the NFL, but he never crosses the line of scrimmage. Right? And that's the difference. To keep that offensive line with that kind of discipline, it's remarkable. And that's why I just absolutely think that Kansas City, that's why you can't ever count them out. Because Pat Mahomes can do stupid shit, like have 13 seconds left on the clock and still can win a football game. Who else does that? It's maddening, actually. But if you are a fan of his and you're not, say from San Diego, Denver, or Oakland, then it's fun as hell to watch.
It's so maddening that if you're in the AFC East right now and you're listening to this podcast, you're like, why in the fuck are you talking about the Chiefs? And here we are. So anyway, back to the East. Here's my hot take. Hot take. Pew, 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 pew. I think that the Jets and the Dolphins will tie at 11-6, and the Jets will have the tiebreaker, and the Jets will win the division at 11-6. I think the Dolphins will get the wild card at 11-6. I think that Tua will actually stay healthy this season, and I think he'll ball out. I think that the Bills are going to have some injury issues. They're going to go 10-7, still not bad. And I think that the Pats are actually going to go 8-9, just barely a losing record.
The Pats at 8-9,
and that nice. And that next year, look out for the Pats. But this year, no bueno.
But I'll just have to disagree with you on all of that. There's no way Tagliavoa is going to stay healthy. There's just no way that's going to happen.
Come on, man. He's been learning jiu-jitsu. He knows how to roll now.
Before the end of the year, this 24th ranked offensive
he can turtle.
But I agree with the Jets. The Jets are legit. They're going to the playoffs this year. But I got the Bills coming in first. Mm-hmm. So I got Bills, Jets, Miami, Pats. And I think Miami would do much, much better. But Tagliavoa has never played more than 12 games in a season. Why would anybody think he's going to do any better than that this year? And just imagine what they could do if they had good quarterback play all the time. But he's just fragile, man. And some players are. They can't stand up to it. So that takes us to the West, which is where Kansas City resides. They're the team to beat. And I'm going to say this for the record. Fuck Chris Jones. That team is still the team to beat if Chris Jones doesn't even play this year. I don't even care. The rest of that defensive line is spectacular, with or without him. Be better with him, I'm sure. But if he's not there, I don't see Kansas City sliding a whole hell of a lot. Tyreek Hill didn't play for them last year. He went to Miami, and they won more games. I mean, so who cares? That's when you have an organization that's built like they are, similar to the way the Patriots have built before them, it doesn't matter. One guy, other than your quarterback, one guy does not make your team. And Chris Jones has made a huge mistake in thinking he's flexing too hard, and I don't think they give a shit. I wouldn't be surprised if they can't get something figured out here in the next week. That they're just going to put him on the non-injured reserve, and that he'll be traded off of that team before the trade deadline. That'll be the end of him.
So here's how it'll work. And honestly, he's only going to screw himself from here. Unless the Chiefs were to cave, Jones is only going to be the one that hurts himself here. Now, granted, it hurts the team to not have our best defensive player, but what he's looking at is, so Jones is still under contract this coming year.
Yep.
And he can still be franchise tag next week. Already incurred a bunch of fines.
$2 million.
He's at roughly like $24 million a year. He's asking, apparently what they've narrowed it down to is a 2-year extension. I've just heard this today. A 2-year extension above and beyond this year. He wants it fully guaranteed. And the Chiefs have offered him about $27.25 million a year for 2 years, fully guaranteed. And he wants 32 and a half or something more than Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
He wants the Aaron Donald.
He's out of his fucking mind.
So Donald was an anomaly. They paid too much, and the Chiefs know that. And so they've offered him what they've offered him, and he's not budging.
To be fair, though, I love Chris Jones. I think he's a fantastic football player. All pro, great. Aaron Donald's better.
So Aaron Donald has been better. I would say that Jones may have an argument that he's more likely to be more healthy going forward. Whatever.
He's only 29 years old.
I don't care. Donald got too much money. Jones knows that once you get past 30, you don't get the big contracts anymore. And so he's trying to get what he can get. And so they're at an impasse. I'm, as a Kansas City fan right now, I'm frustrated with Jones. I'm over it. I'm done. Like, take your fucking money, come in the fucking house. Let's go. Let's play ball. I'm over it. But whatever. It is what it is. I'm with you. The Chiefs will figure it out. It will be a struggle. We will lose a game, maybe 2 games without him. And largely because of him. But what that does for me, the Chiefs do win the AFC West, but they win it at 12-5, whereas it could have been, 13-4. And they still, get the number 1 seed. They still, the AFC still runs through Arrowhead or Burrowhead, as some assholes have tried to call it before and got proven wrong.
That got flipped real
And
Aaron Donald has 100 sacks in 9 years, and nobody's, not even Reggie White, registered that. This guy he's the class in the NFL when it comes to defensive linemen. I like Chris Jones, but he's not that good.
No argument. So Chris Jones, hot cocoa, I used to love you, but now I'm fucking over you. Also, dude, you could have been a legacy in Kansas City. You could have been someone who you could have just showed up to places and gotten paid for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But now you're going to go to some other town and you're going to ride off into obscurity and come back to Kansas City and nobody's going to give a shit about you because you're a dickhead.
Right, because we've had this conversation. If you play for the best team in football, which nobody even argues isn't the Kansas City Chiefs, and you've been there for your entire career, so you get paid a few $1 million less than the guy you think you should be paid like. But because you're on the best team and you have such notoriety, that on the outside of your contract, which are endorsements, you'll do 10 times the amount of money that this guy you're chasing for his contract money because you're on the best team in the NFL and everybody knows who the fuck you are and your face is on television every week. So everybody knows. And I don't understand how they can't figure that out. Not only that, what if the Raiders gave you the money you want? Well, first off, take 16% off of that money because that's what you have to pay in taxes for making that kind of money in fucking California. So now you're making 16% less than you can. How does that add up for you? This is what I always said. If I was an NFL football player, I would never play anywhere outside of football because I'm going to save so much money by not having to pay state income tax. I'm going to beat that from anywhere. It doesn't even matter what state because Florida's got none. 0 state income tax. You're in California at 16%. So if you make $1 million, that's $160,000 in that tax, and there's no write-offs for it. You just pay it. It's crazy. So
that's a good point. That's a good point. That's a good point business-wise and all that. But for me, it's more like this, and I'll quote. So I've probably made plenty enough money at this point, and my family's probably going to be fine forever. So at this point, I'm really more or less worried about legacy and chasing a dynasty. And that was my best Pat Mahomes voice. But anyway, my point is that your fucking leader isn't trying to grab every dollar, is he? He could grab every
no great quarterback ever does that. And here's the thing, too. You play on a football team. You have to look at its business. you have to look long term. If Chris Jones leaves and gets traded out now, goes to the Atlanta Falcons, never goes to the playoffs again, in 3 years, does anybody give a shit who he is? 2 years? Nobody cares. Nobody cares how great you are if you play on a shit team, right? Why do you think Tom Brady retired last year? Because he didn't want to play on a team that's going to win 3 football games this year. Because nobody cares about you when that happens. Nobody gives a shit. You play on a team. There are guys on the Pittsburgh Steelers from the years they won, 76, 77, 79, and 80. 4 in 6 years, right? There are players on that team still cashing in on appearances almost 50 years later because it matters. Well, I don't understand how these guys get so locked up inside of their own head that they think that if they're not paid the top of their position, this is what I know. Any Hall of Famer and any champion ever, no one ever said this. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the pleasure of talking to Chris Jones today, the highest paid defensive lineman in NFL history. No, what they say is, what we have here is Chris Jones, 3, 4, 5-time Super Bowl champion Chris Jones. That's what they say. Nobody gives a shit how much money you made. And your legacy will make you money until you die, even if you live to 100 years old. He is just short-sighted, and it's maddening. Now we got to move on.
Yeah, I totally agree.
We already know he's going to win that division because who else is? So next I got San Diego. I move on to San Diego. They got to get over the playoffs. If that sticks in their head, it's going to be a shit season for them. I love Herbert.
So Los Angeles.
Awesome. Yeah, I keep calling them San Diego because they're always going to be San Diego to me. This guy called the Commanders the Redskins. So I think that 27 points. God damn, it's
wild card.
I got them in a wild card. Yeah, I do. I think they're going to win 11 games. They're a good, really good football team, and they improved themselves. They did, because I got Kansas City at 13-4. I think that San Diego is legitimate, but that's a hell of a hangover to get over, and we'll see how that messes with their head, because we've seen teams go and look, that's an embarrassment in the playoffs, like one of the top 2 or 3 of all time. We've seen teams make it to the Super Bowl over and over and over again, and the embarrassment of the beatdown they take in a Super Bowl or the loss that they take, they don't even make the playoffs the next year because the organization is just still eating shit over it. So it'll be interesting to see how San Diego overcomes all that. And then I got Denver. I don't have them making the playoffs. Got them maybe 9-8 or 8-9 because Sean Payton is a huge difference maker. I am not sold on Russell Wilson. But if anybody can make Russell Wilson a better quarterback, it's Sean Payton. Russell Wilson isn't going to be a world beater or do what he ever did in Seattle ever again, I don't think. But he'll be much, much better than he was last year. And Denver has a lot of talent. But they're not playoff worthy. In Oakland, Jimmy G, seriously, we're done. You're done. It's over. Forget it.
So what's your total for Oakland?
7 wins, maybe.
That's exactly where we call them, Oakland, Las Vegas. So 7-10.
Raiders, 7-10. I got Denver at 9-8. San Diego at 11-6, and Kansas City at 13-4.
So I have the Chiefs at 12-5. I have the LA Chargers at 10-7.
San Diego.
And and I'm right with you with the Broncos 8-9 and the Raiders at 7-10. I think the Chiefs 12-5 is enough to win the whole thing.
12-5. I got the Bills at 12-5 too. I got the Chiefs 1 game better. The Chiefs are used to playing this kind of gauntlet schedule because they're always the top 1 or 2 teams in the AFC, and they're always going to play that schedule. They're always going to have to play in the regular season the Bills and the Ravens and the Bengals and the friggin' Eagles and whoever else are going to throw at them, and it never changes anything for them. They always win 12 or 13 games anyway. I don't see anything changing this year.
Yep.
I don't think Chris Jones obviously he's impactful and their defense will play differently, But if Chris Jones never plays again, I don't see it changing their trajectory for what they're going to do this year. I just don't. There's only a few defensive players in my lifetime that were so over the top that if they were gone, everything changes. And we're going like Lawrence Taylor, Reggie White, Deion Sanders. We're talking about the greatest Hall of Famers of all time. But generally speaking, the Chris Jones, who may or may not end up in the Hall of Fame, you're not that guy. You're not Reggie White. Sorry, bro. You're not. You're not the guy that can come in as a defensive player and make a team a Super Bowl contender like Reggie White did in Green Bay. You're just not that guy. And I just don't see Kansas City missing a beat with or without Chris Jones. Prefer him to have Chris Jones. So Chris Jones being on the team or not is not going to cost them games because they're still going to outscore the other team. Pat Mahomes will just dial it up a little bit more. And instead of beating teams 35-20, they'll beat teams 37-27. Who cares? Still going to win.
So I'll agree that has to be the attack. That has to be the approach. They have to ratchet up the amount of points they're going to win because Chris Jones is the best defensive tackle in the game right now, health-wise. And okay, if he's healthy, but he's not. So
why is Aaron Donald not healthy? What injuries is he dealing with?
Well, we'll see. We'll see how he does this year. He wasn't healthy last year. That's all I'm saying. So what I'll say is that Chris Jones he's a game wrecker. He's the best defensive lineman we have. I'm with you that the Chiefs will figure it out. We don't want to lose him, but at the same time, you know what, Chris Jones, you can kind of go fuck yourself because I'm kind of over your diva ass. But I do hope, I have my fingers crossed that Wednesday, because we're on Monday here. The game is on Thursday. The opening game of the season is on Thursday.
Absolutely.
So and when this is released, it'll probably be Tuesday or Wednesday. So we'll be like a day or two before the very first game. And I'm going to be so fucking pissed if Chris Jones is not there for that game. And I'm not alone. I've heard the fan base loud and clear. We're kind of done with you, dude. You have burned some bridges at this point. You start missing games, and you're a diva, and we're done. You don't understand the Kansas City crowd, dude. We're a little more about the fucking team than we are about your diva ass. So, yeah, man, that sucks. I didn't think he was going to do this. He has hinted to it. He's held out before, and then he didn't. But now he's like really doing it. And here's another thing. I think the worst part is his agents. I think it's brothers. They're amateurs. He is the biggest client they have. He's the absolute biggest client they have, and they have no fucking clue what they're doing. And
that's what we said about
he's
Lamar
getting screwed because he's an idiot too.
We said that about Lamar Jackson's mom, and he ended up getting the greatest contract of all time. So you never know, right? I'll say that Chris Jones last year, I'm not going to say over his career, but last year he was the best defensive tackle in football. I won't argue that point. And do I think he'll be that great moving forward? Yeah. I get what he's trying to do here. I just think he's short-sighted in the way he's trying to do it because he can make equal amounts of money. For instance, Peyton Manning was in an interview one time on a podcast I was listening to. And he said, I never really cared about my NFL money because my endorsement money was 10 times my NFL money. So for me to dial my contract back so that we could have the talent around us was not that big a deal. Because once you win and you consistently win in the NFL, you can make easily more money outside of your NFL contract. And he goes, I've never understood why a lot of players simply don't understand that concept. And Chris Jones seems to be one of those guys that just doesn't understand that concept. And that's unfortunate because we've seen it over and over again with NFL players where they're just so convinced that they're being slighted or they're being disrespected because the team's not coming forward saying, we'll pay you whatever you want. That's not how this works. And when you have the opportunity to be on the best football team in the NFL and make all kinds of endorsement money on the outside of that, and have a legacy that will carry you making money for the rest of your life, that will make your NFL contracts look paltry by comparison, I just don't understand how they can't get that. I don't get it. So to your point about his brothers, real NFL management organizations and agents understand that's how that works. You think Lee Steinberger, Lee Steinberger would sit down with Chris Jones and explain to him, this is how much money you can make. You give up this $5 million a year right now, and over the next 25 years, I'll make you another $100 million. Right? That's what he would do, and that's why these guys sometimes just shoot themselves in the foot. But the NFL doesn't stop playing because you're a great player. They just don't. It never ends. Great players keep coming. It's just a train of great players coming into the NFL. Some fizzle. Most don't. Well, most do, but those that don't, then they just keep making their money. And if Chris Jones were to get injured in the first game, blow up his knee, and it positioned and so badly that he can never play again, no one in the NFL, literally, no one in the NFL would give a shit. They just keep on rolling because that's what they do. Barry Sanders, the greatest running back in the history of football when he retired. Okay, next. That's how that works. Tom Brady just retired. Anybody losing sleep over it? No. That's the NFL. And Chris Jones? No. He's getting bad advice. And worse, he's taking bad advice.
Yeah. So back in the day when, what's it? LaDainian Tomlinson. Not Tomlinson. Who the hell am I thinking of?
That was LT, man. That was
LT. That guy's legit. No. I'm talking about
Diego.
Correct. When they were San Diego. No, I'm thinking of the guy who ran for the Pittsburgh Steelers that came to the Chiefs later.
Spell.
Le'Veon Bell. Yeah. So Le'Veon Bell was a big holdout guy. And I remember when he held out, and it didn't work. It kind of worked out for him, I guess.
He went to the Jets.
It was a big deal.
What the fucking Jets?
Well, yeah. So it didn't work. If he would have stayed with the Steelers and actually just kept rolling with it, he would have had a legacy. Bowl.
He would have been a household name. He went to the Jets, and everybody forgot who he was because nobody cared.
So totally agree.
Then he went to Kansas City. My brother thought that Barry Sanders came out of retirement to play for the Chiefs.
So anyway, I remember when he was holding out, though, Chris Jones showed up in a video with him and was cheering him on for the holdout. And now I'm hearkening back to this motherfucker.
That's a shame.
So birds of a shithead feather.
So I got Kansas City, San Diego, Denver, Oakland in that order, and KC and San Diego making the playoffs.
So I have the Chiefs obviously winning the division at 12-5. I have the Chargers getting a wild card at 10-7. I'm with you with the Broncos. I think they definitely improve with Peyton as the coach, but it's only 8-9. And then I have the Raiders, Jimmy G getting hurt in usual fashion, and the Raiders go 7-10. And then I have that all. What's that?
So, no, I'm agreeing with you. With Jimmy G, he's not going to make the whole season. Ain't going to happen.
Never does.
Never does. It's technically, not going to happen. Injuries. So, maybe. So I got the Bills, the Jets, Cincinnati and the Ravens, Kansas City, San Diego, and the Jags going to the playoffs.
And for me, the big one is I actually feel like the Bills are going to miss the playoffs. And that's my beep, 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 hot take, folks.
It's a bad one, but it's yours. I got the Bills. I got the Bills at 12-5. they're a better football team than they've been. I think James Cook is going to be a lot better than people expect. Now they got Dalton and Osiris. Yeah, they're much improved. They just got to keep Diggs from being a douche. Let's see if they can do that. The Jets, I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to the playoffs too. I think Miami's a fantastic football team, but you can't stay healthy. Tagliavoa, he's like Jimmy G. He's never had a healthy season, ever. It's not going to change. There's no magic involved here. Jiu-jitsu is not going to help him. Jiu-jitsu doesn't keep you from getting crushed by a 280-pound defensive end and bouncing you off your head and giving you a concussion. That jiu-jitsu ain't helping you with that, bro. So, Lynn Swan in ballet was a much better help for him than jiu-jitsu is going to be for Tagliavoa. So,
all right, man.
So who do you got going to the Super Bowl?
That,
you making a Super Bowl prediction here? Or we
Chiefs.
waiting for another time?
Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl, and they will meet for the first time ever a rematch, the Philadelphia Eagles.
You've been saying that a lot. So here's my hot take. The Buffalo Bills finally make it all the way to the Super Bowl, and they take on the Philadelphia Eagles, but they lose. Because Buffalo can't win Super Bowls, we already know that's a fact. Ask Jim Kelly.
How are they going to win the AFC Championship? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Oh, because the Kansas City Chiefs are going to stumble before they get to the championship game.
Ouch.
Kansas City can't go to every Super Bowl. They can't. So, in all honesty, I think the Bills are maybe just.
That's a stinky take.
Maybe, no, well, of course, because you're a homer. The reason
Maybe.
I'm going with the Bills because I think the Bills are a fantastic football team, and they're one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the NFL. I think my primary reason for taking the Bills is because the idea that a football team is going to go to 4 out of the last 5 Super Bowls and win 3 of them is like 1 in 20 billion. So it's easier to bet against. It's just the odds that Kansas City is going to go back to the Super Bowl, win it again, is highly unlikely. So to me, then, after that, who's the likely team or the team that's good enough to actually get there in the AFC? And to me, that's the Bills. And it's not that I don't think Kansas City's good enough to go. They very well go and win it again. I'm just going with the Bills for the primary reason. Excuse me, just knocked my shit on the floor. For the primary reason that I'm playing the odds a little bit here, that it seems highly, highly unlikely because nobody's ever done it before. Not even the Patriots or the Steelers or the Cowboys in their heyday or the Packers. So it just seems unlikely. That's all. Do I think the Kansas City's still the best team in the NFL? Yep. But to go again, 4 out of 5, yeah, it just seems so unlikely. That's all. I'm just playing the odds.
Okie doke. All right. So we're at a minute or an hour and 3. Yep. We typically try to wrap it up sooner than that.
Yeah, we're not too far over.
I'm going to go ahead and just finish. I'm going to finish by saying this, that fuck the Bills. And the idea that the Bills are going to go to the Super Bowl over the Chiefs is, oh, man, it's insane. Anyway, you're welcome to your opinions, sir. And you're welcome to be wrong.
Right.
With that, so, I'll give you the last word, bud.
All right. So when we did the NFC, I just went out and so I had an MVP for the AFC, and that's Josh Allen. I got a Rookie of the Year for the AFC is Zay Flowers. I got the Defensive Player of the Year for the AFC is T.J. Watts. And I got the Offensive Player of the Year will be Tyreek Hill.
Wow. How is Tyreek Hill going to be the Offensive Player of the Year if Tua Tagliafico is going to be just so hurt all season, who's going to do that?
Doesn't matter.
Who's going to throw in the ball?
At 1,700 and some yards last year with nobody. So if Tagliafico can make even 10 or 12 games, his number is going to be extraordinary. Maybe 2,000 yards receiving this year. It's going to be ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, Tagliafico missed almost all of last year, and his numbers were the best in the NFL. So I can't even imagine what will happen if Tagliafico stands up for 12 games.
I have Tua actually being in 14 of the games, finishing the season, going strong into the postseason, and I still don't have Tyreek being the top receiver. I don't even think he has as many yards as Travis Kelce. I think that Tua is going to pass it around. He's going to sling it around, and that's what's going to help him have the success.
No, I think Tyreek Hill is the best wide receiver in the NFL. And I think that
I don't think you're wrong. I think that
and I think he's
going to get doubled a lot.
I think he's going to have a monster friggin' year, especially if you're right that Tagliafico can stay healthy. So last year, he had 1,710 yards and led the NFL in receiving, averaging 16.4 yards a catch. And that was without Tagliafico. Just imagine what he could do with him. It's going to be ridiculous. Yeah. So if you're right, the Tagliafico can stand up straight for 14 games. Tyreek Hill's going over 2,000 yards. Will be the first wide receiver to do it.
They have another receiver. He's really good.
Not that good. But Tyreek had 1,700 plus yards last year with a quarterback that nobody even knows who it was. So if
you ain't telling me shit.
I know. So if Tagliafico can stay remotely healthy, his numbers will only improve. They're not going to get worse. So how do you improve from 1,700 plus yards? Go north. So 18, 19, 2,000? Yeah.
Tyreek is best when the defense doesn't know what to expect. It's all off script. He can scramble everywhere. And you can just throw it to an empty space and he can get there faster than everyone. That's not Tagliafico's game. Anyway, we'll see. So, yeah, man, with that, I don't think we're too far off from each other. Other than the fact that you think the Bills are going to the Super Bowl, and I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. That's our big sticking point.
Well, for sure they'll make the playoffs. I mean, they're going to win their division. But the fact that they'll get to the Super Bowl, that's a crapshoot for every team, even the best teams in the NFL. Repeating and going to the Super Bowl is not easy. So, and repeating the Super Bowl with the exact same two teams, which has never happened, even less likely. But I do think the Eagles are going because there's just nobody else in the NFC. Who? Brock Purdy in San Francisco? Nah, that ain't going to happen. I think the kid will be okay. But although I did see a funny meme today about how it's not a meme. It was a little video. It's a cartoon video. And Dak Prescott walks into Jerry Jones' office and goes, "You trying to get rid of me?" He was like, "No, Dak, why would I try to get rid of you?" And he goes, "Well, look at that picture." And there's a picture of Jerry Jones with his arm around Dak Prescott with his face cut out of the picture. It's all because Trey Lance is there. So it was hilarious. But, yeah, they want to walk Dak's. If Dak shits the bed, they're going to be their fucking guy. And they're going to jettison old Dak in his contract. And I can't say that I blame him. But we are at 108.9. So I got the AFC. We got it all locked down. I think the Bills, Cincinnati, and Kansas City are the best teams in the AFC like they are every friggin' year. I think any one of them are more than qualified to go to the Super Bowl. I don't think that there's going to be a whole lot of difference. And almost all the playoff teams that I have, with the exception of the Jets, are the same playoff teams from last year. But the AFC's loaded, and anything can happen. And I could be totally wrong. So we'll see.
Yep, and I think that the Chiefs are going to win fewer games, probably 2 fewer games than last year. and I think that the whole pack of the AFC is actually going to get more tight, and the win-loss ratio more truncated, which is going to make it just a bigger dogfight and more interesting come into the season, how everything shakes out, and it's going to make those last few games really exciting.
And that's best for fans, right? Because those last few weeks, everything's going to matter. Because I think things are so close that the Jets getting in, say, over Miami, we're talking about maybe head-to-head competition and that kind of stuff. Like it's going to be razor thin. It's not like the NFC. I mean, you legitimately in the AFC, you have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, at least 10 teams that are easily could qualify for the playoffs, but you can only accept 7. So it's going to be very interesting. In the NFC, they have 7 spots, and only 3 teams are actually worthy of any of those spots. So the AFC is totally loaded, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But that's why whomever goes for the AFC, I give them the nod over the NFC. And the reason, generally speaking, is because they're battle-worn and tested by the time they get there, and the AFC not so much. And the NFC not so much.
Well, right on, man. So, got anything else to add?
Nope, we're good.
I'm good.
It's a great show.
So, by the way, folks, so a couple days from now is the kickoff. It is the
Thursday
the Chiefs,
night.
the home opener against the Lions, and we are looking
Thursday
forward
night
to
football,
that.
so
And
if you
then
don't
we
have
will do our
Prime-
next pod.
If you don't have Amazon Prime, you're not watching the game because that's where it's going to be being played because they have the Thursday night package. So hopefully you got it. If not, go to your local tavern and watch it there.
Yep. So with that, everybody have a good night. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Peace out.